Do you want to know how to hunt spring black bear in Montana on public land? Well, you've come to the right place, so buckle up. Hi everybody, welcome back to LocaCarnivore. Glad you could join us today. Like we said, we're talking about hunting spring black bear in Montana on public land. And I'm going to share with you lessons that I've learned from hunting black bear in Montana for about 20 years now. And of course, like always, please give us a big like on that video. Smash that button for us, a thumbs up. Also, we want you on the LocaCarnivore team, so please subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you won't miss any of our great videos. Now, we're talking hunting public land here. And it's a little different for hunting bears on private land because you're going to have a more known area and where the bears generally go and stuff like that. And you can find specific food areas that they like to feed on, you know, whatever it might be. So private is a little different, and public, the bears are more spread out. Let's be honest, they're more spread out. It's a little more difficult proposition. So the things we're going to share with you today are geared towards finding the bear on public land. All right, I'm going to share quite a few things with you today. The video might run a little long, and my apologies, but it's all good information. And I'm going to give you the number one thing that I have learned hunting Montana black bear on public land at the end of the video. So stay with us all the way through, won't you? Alrighty, let's get down to it. Now, these are not in any particular order except for that big number one at the end. So just so you know. Now, the first thing on the agenda is you have to know your regs and you need to know your bears. Montana has both black bear and grizzly bear, and woe to you if you shoot a grizzly bear when you're hunting black bear. So you need to know about that, and you need to understand all the ins and outs of recognizing your bears. And you also need to know the regs because they're going to vary from different parts of the state. For one thing, the seasons are different lengths depending on where you are in the state. Plus, some areas have quotas, and there are reporting requirements for you if you do harvest a bear. Next up, and this is something I can't stress enough, Montana, their bear hunting is spot and stock, unlike some states such as Idaho or wherever where you can hunt over bait, which, let's be honest, it makes the process generally a lot easier. But Montana doesn't do baiting, so it's spot and stock. So I can't emphasize to you enough the fact you're going to be on your feet all day long for the most part, especially if you're hunting public land. You're going to be hoofing it up and down, all sorts of radical terrain and hills and things like that, so you need to be in really good physical condition. I would recommend that you have a conditioning program before the season and you stick with it so that when you hit the opening bell on opening day, you're in shape and you're ready to run. All right, you may ask, why on earth would you have a video dedicated only to spring bear season in Montana as opposed to just hunting bears in general in Montana? Well, I'm here to tell you that spring bear season is distinctly different from the fall bear season. And the main reason it is different is the food source that the bears are going after. When spring season comes around, those bears have just woken up and they've gotten out of their dens. They can start coming out of their dens as early as mid-March or so, roughly is when they start coming out, but they definitely are out and about by early April. And they're hungry because they've spent all the winter in their dens living off their fat stores that they built up during the fall season. So what their primary food objective is to feed themselves. Now, they're not as desperately hungry as they are in the fall. In the fall, their appetites go into overdrive. It's called being hyperphagic. And you don't have a hyperphagic bear in the spring, but you definitely have a bear that's definitely on the peckish side, and they want to feed themselves. Now, their primary food source during the spring is going to be grasses, and this includes grizzly bears too. So remember, grizzlies and black bear both inhabit the same environment, and they're competing for generally the same food resource at the same time. So there can be conflict between the species, and the fact you can bump into both species without really trying. It's very easy to hit one or the other. So you need to keep that in mind. As I said, they're mainly going to eat grass. Black bears especially, they are big. They're omnivores, but they tend towards the herbivore side for the most part. And they're going to want that new, fresh, green, succulent grass. The other thing they're going to look for, if they have a chance, they're going to try and grab a fawn because the deer are starting to drop their fawns and the elk are calving as well. Elk's a little bit tougher thing for a black bear. It's a little tougher mission. Grizzlies tend to specialize more in elk calves. But again, black bear, they're not going to pass up a good opportunity. But they really like fawns if they can get themselves one. So what's that mean? Well, first of all, you should track The whitetails, if you're looking for bear, watch where the whitetails are, because A, their fawns are going to be around, and B, they, unlike the mule deer, they tend to do a little more grazing. Yes, they're foragers, but they tend to graze a little more, and they also like that fresh grass. So if you can find where the whitetails are, most likely that's where good food is, good ground food, and also where the fawns are. So that's something to keep in mind there as far as spring versus fall season. On the subject of the food then, I'm going to show you a quick clip here. Let's go out into the field and I'm going to show you what you're going to look for as far as the type of grass that these bears are going to be looking for right at the beginning of that season. It's a couple weeks before spring bear season gets going, but I wanted to show you a couple of things that specifically about greenup. There's a lot of talk about waiting for the greenup on south-facing slopes. Now if you take a look at this little slope here, it looks pretty dry. The snow's just melted off of it a little bit ago and a few weeks ago. And it doesn't really look like it's greening up. Everybody thinks about really lush, you know, like somebody's Kentucky bluegrass lawn in the suburbs. And that's not what we're talking about. So we're going to go up and I'll show you a little more in detail what I'm talking about. But this doesn't look very promising, does it? I'm going to show you why it's actually exactly what you're looking for. Alrighty, this is a prime example of what I'm going to talk to you about here. What I'm talking about for grass, for spring bear. And I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, get my fat mid out here. You see this green stuff that's mixed in with the brown stuff? And it's short, it's not super tall. It's not like this sort of business here, like what you'd think. It's this fresh grass right down here. That's what the bears are looking for. And you can kind of spot where to look for the bears. If you find deer, especially whitetails, they'll be nibbling on this stuff because they like this. This is fresher stuff and it's softer. And this is the nutrition that they're looking for, is this green stuff, even though it's mixed in with a whole lot of brown. See, green, brown, they're right together, but that's what they want. They're not looking for this big tall stuff to green up. Even if it gets green, they don't like it as much. They want this fresh new stuff down here. So that's what you're looking for. So don't think just because it's really early, first week, even first opening day of the season, there's no green up out there. There is, you just have to go look for it. Big consideration when it comes to spring bear hunting in Montana is you want to, in my opinion, you're better off hunting early in the season, as early as possible. Those first 2 to 3 weeks are really the golden time to do it. And that is because the deciduous cover, the leafy bushes and stuff, undergrowth, other than the, you got your pine trees and stuff and your spruce, etc. But that leafy undergrowth is going to start budding out at this point in time and starting to leaf out. So if you wait until all that ground cover is leafed out and the grass has grown up really tall, say waist high or better even in some cases, in some places, depending on the rainfall, it's going to be a lot harder to find a bear because they've just got so many places to hide and it's hard to see them. On top of that, if you have to follow up a wounded bear or track one, and you got to go into all that cover, it can be really challenging. Read that as really scary. So it's going to be really hard to see a bear until basically they jump on you. So you want to, if possible, do your hunting before that ground cover all leaves out and the grass grows really tall. Hey, while we're talking about tall grass and stuff, that is the place for ticks. And I'll tell you what, Montana, especially on the west side of the state, as soon as the weather warms up and it gets damp and from the rains and maybe some late snow, the ticks just explode. If you get a bear down, guess what? That's going to be a tick motel, a self-propelled tick motel. So be prepared for some really, icky skinning, basically. That's about all I can say about that. One thing you want to make sure you do for spring black bear season is you need to scout. And I mean, just get out there as early as you can, even when there's snow on the ground. Get on your snowshoes or your cross-country skis, which will help get you in shape, by the way. Or snow machine, whatever you need to do, and get out there and really start looking around. And especially once the snow starts receding, start looking for bear sign, tracks, and scat, and see if you can find where they're at. Get a general idea of where they might be congregating and moving around. So you want to scout, and part of your scouting should include, of course, looking on topo maps and satellite and all that, and kind of figuring out, the lay of the land of where you intend to hunt. But a really good idea is to give Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks a call and talk to their bear biologists that they have on staff. Your tag fees are helping to pay for them to be there to answer the phone, and or text and email them, whatever you want to do. They are very interested in helping you harvest a bear legally, and they really want to see you succeed. And they're a great source of information. All right, we showed you a little clip earlier there of what to look for as far as the type of grasses, especially early in the spring bear season. And you're going to look for these south-facing slopes because that's where the snow is receding. And that's the basic thing. You're going to, how high up should you be hunting on these hills? You should be following the snow line, in my opinion. As it gets warmer and the snow recedes, you need to be moving uphill and following that snow line, because that's where the grass is going to be greening up. And remember, you don't need a huge verdant green glow-in-the-dark postcard, grass-covered slope. You just need to find those fresh grasses, and that's going to be where the snow is receding. So just work your way on up as the season progresses. Plan to be uphill, which again, that's why you need to be in shape. You're going to be doing a lot of hoofing up and down hills, I'll tell you what. Another topographical feature you need to be aware of is look for bear along water courses, because bears follow water courses up and down hill. It's sort of a little highway system for them. And again, there's a lot of growth in there and stuff, and there's also going to be fresher grasses because that has got more water earlier as the snow runs off, and especially if it's on south facing, so that's going to be a lot of fresh grass for them. And even as the leaves start coming in and the flowers and stuff, they like to eat forbs and stuff, so you might want to definitely look for water courses and then work your way along water courses. Now be careful, don't get too buried in the deep dark stuff there, because if you bump a bear it could get really ugly really fast. So you want to stay up a little bit higher, do your glassing down into the water courses, but that's a golden place for bears to run around. Another handy tip, and yeah, admittedly this is not just for spring bear, it's bear hunting in general, but always refer to Robert Ruark, the famous African professional hunter's maxim of use enough gun. And what am I talking about? Well, I'll tell you, if you want to know the specifics in and out, we did a recent video about the top 5 black bear cartridges. Put a link down in the description. I suggest you just go watch that. That's probably the best bet. Hope you're enjoying the video so far. One thing, we could really use your help supporting the channel. We do have a Patreon, links down in the description. Go show us a little love. Also, great happenings over at LocaCarnivore.com, our website, and we do have a store that's there. There's a little tab at the top that says store. Just click on that rascal and you can get some LocaCarnivore merchandise, plus we have some great content for you over there too. Appreciate that. Now, one other thing that you really need to remember about bear hunting in general, and spring bear of course, is, and I'm just going to touch on this very quickly, you should have a backup gun and some bear spray with you. And if you want to know how I carry my backup stuff, my backup gun and stuff, I do have a couple of videos, and I'll put the links down in the description on how I made a chest rig to carry my gun and bear spray and a bunch of other good stuff, and that's my bear hunting kit. And I also will show you how to make a bear battle belt. If you don't want to do the chest rig thing, you can make a bear battle belt. Link on that video is down in the description, of course. And if you're wondering what kind of gun is a good gun for a backup gun, well, we did a video on best backup guns for hunters, and I'll put that down in the description. A lot of video links down in the description, but it'll be worth your time, trust me. I don't want to put a bunch of cards up here because you'll just get distracted and go everywhere else. But you want to watch those videos. I think you'll really enjoy them and find them very useful. Now, one of my prime bear hunting days is the day after a late snowstorm. And remember, we're talking mid-April or so, and you can get snow, especially in the mountains of Montana. It's snowed in July. I mean, anything's possible, but it's quite likely to get a late snow in mid to late April. And that's a great day to go out, I'll tell you what, because you have like an inch, maybe 2 inches of snow on the ground. It's not so much that you can't move around, but you're going to be able to track a lot easier. For one thing, you'll be able to find bear tracks. Also, their scat's going to stand out. Plus, these are fairly dark-furred animals. Even if they're blonde or cinnamon phase, they stand out against that snow really good. And the other thing is, if you do happen to hit a bear and you have to track him, first of all, you can see his footprints a lot easier. And second of all, if he is leaving a blood trail, which bears don't always leave good blood trails, but if he is leaving a blood trail, spotting that crimson on that white snow is going to make it a lot easier to follow up on that rascal. Now, another great location to find bears or to look for them is decommissioned logging roads. And I'll tell you what, bears are lazy. They're basically lazy. They're like any animal. They don't want to expend any more energy than they have to get what they need in life, whether it's food, water, mates, security, shelter, whatever it is. So they don't want to put a lot of work into this. And so they will walk those old roads all the time. Those are major bear highways, in my opinion. Yeah, they go up and down the water courses, but when they're transitioning areas, like to get from one draw to another or one food source to another, if there's those roads around, they will walk those roads. So it's a really good idea for you to be walking those roads too, or at least glassing along those roads and keeping an eye out. I can't tell you how many bears I've found wandering around on a decommissioned logging road. They just like it. Now, if you don't have logging roads in the area you're hunting, another thing to do is look for game trails, because they'll follow the game trails. First of all, they might bump into a fawn. So they're thinking, maybe there's dinner on this trail. But the other thing is the trail has already been worn in by the other animal, mainly the deer and sometimes the elk, but mainly the deer. And it's easier to travel. They traverse the hillsides instead of going straight up and down, the deer do. And also it's just worn in for them, so it's easier footing. And it's also less foliage usually that they have to bounce their way through. So again, anything that reduces that bear workload as far as their ability to cover the landscape, to travel around the landscape, is attractive to them. So it behooves you to find these areas and keep an eye out for these bear highways. All right, what you've been waiting for, the number one thing about hunting bears, and this goes for both spring and fall bear, let's be honest, but spring bear, it's really important in my opinion. And I want to pass along the advice from a gentleman named Hub Zemke, who was a fighter pilot during World War II, American fighter pilot, who coincidentally was from Montana. And he always told all of his pilots in his squadron, go in close. And when you think you're too close, go in closer. And that is the number one thing when hunting bears. You want to get as close as you possibly can so that you get a very definitive shot, and the closer the range, the more likely you're going to hit where you're aiming, and because you don't want to mess around with these. Remember, these animals are dangerous, especially if they're wounded. They can hurt you, they can kill you. Even the black bears. Don't underestimate these black bears. So like I said, go in close, and when you think you're too close, go in closer. Well, there you go. Thanks for joining us today. We know your time is valuable. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.